Iran has been conquered, rebuilt, and renamed for thousands of years. But in DNA, something shocking happens. The signature stays. When scientists map Iranian genomes, a clear pattern emerges, an ancient core, and one major turning point that changed everything. Because Iran sits at the meeting point of continents. Caravans, armies, empires, history moved through this land like a river. So the real question isn't who passed through, it's why Iran didn't dissolve into the currents. In the next few minutes, we'll follow 3 chapters written in the code. First, the Zagros and the first farmers 10,000 years ago. Second, the Bronze Age shift when steppe horsemen arrived from the north. Third, the stress test, Alexander, the Silk Road, and the Mongol storm, and what they did and didn't change in the genome. And to hear that story properly, we start where Iran speaks the loudest, its landscape.
From the snowy crowns of the Zagros Mountains to the burning salt plains of the Dasht-e, a hidden story is unfolding, one that no stone inscription ever captured. It doesn't live only in epic poems or royal decrees. It hums quietly in every heartbeat, every strand of hair, every family gathered around a steaming pot of saffron rice. Imagine if the rise and fall of empires, the thunder of invading armies, and the soft footsteps of merchants on caravan routes could all be traced not just in ruins and legends, but in microscopic code spiraling inside each cell. What if the most honest historian of Iran was not a writer with a pen, but a molecule of DNA? Why does Iran's genetic pattern stand out so sharply on the world's map of genomes? Which long-vanished people still whisper through its chromosomes? And how did this land, forever at the crossroads of continents, manage to keep such a distinct biological identity? In this journey, we're going to follow the invisible threads of ancestry that stretch tens of thousands of years into the past, through drought and war, faith and revolution. If you love uncovering the hidden history written in our DNA, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Genetic Blueprint. And let's begin.
Iran is often introduced as a land of poets, mystics, and monumental ruins. But to understand its DNA, we have to zoom out much further. Picture the map of West Asia. To the north, the Caucasus. To the west, Mesopotamia. To the east, Central and South Asia. To the south, the warm waters of the Persian Gulf. The Iranian Plateau sits at the center of all of this like a stone in the middle of a river, forever being washed by currents from every side. For at least 85 million people who call this region home today, identity is a mosaic. Kurdish shepherds in misty mountains, Baluch families under blistering desert skies, Azeri traders in bustling bazaars, Persian-speaking city dwellers in Tehran, Shiraz, and Isfahan. Dozens of languages and dialects, a collage of traditions. Yet when scientists sample their DNA and compare it to populations across the globe, something striking appears. Despite all these layers, there is a consistent, recognizably Iranian genetic signal that refuses to dissolve. That signal didn't appear overnight. Long before the first brick of Persepolis was laid, the land was already home to wandering bands of humans. Tens of thousands of years ago, small groups left Africa and pushed into unfamiliar lands, over mountains, across river valleys, through bitter winters. Some of those groups found refuge on the Iranian Plateau. Their descendants carried ancestral genetic lineages that modern scientists call haplogroups, deep branches on the human family tree. One of the key branches found throughout Iran today is tied to some of the first farmers in human history, people who learned to coax life out of dry soil between the Euphrates, Tigris, and the foothills of the Zagros. As agriculture emerged roughly 10,000 years ago, these early cultivators spread out with their wheat, barley, goats, and sheep, and with their DNA. They didn't just bring food security, they brought a new way of life. Villages replaced temporary camps. Granaries stood where there had once been tents. In their genes, we still find traces of that agricultural revolution, a genetic memory of the moment when survival shifted from chasing herds to planting seeds. But Iran was never a closed garden. Around 5,000 years ago, another population, forged in the open grasslands of the Eurasian steppe, began to move south. These were horse-riding pastoralists who spoke early Indo-European languages. They carried different genetic signatures, including lineages that would later be strongly linked with the emergence of many Indo-Iranian peoples. When these steppe herders met the settled farmers of the plateau, it was a turning point. This is where everything changes. Languages mixed, rituals blended,
and over generations, marriages stitched the two worlds together. Modern Iranian DNA still carries clear signals from both sides, the ancient farmers of the Near East and the mobile tribes of the northern plains. In the double helix, you can almost see the moment when mythic heroes and sky-worshipping horsemen stepped into the same story. Yet, these were only the first chapters. As time moved forward, names we know from history textbooks began to leave their fingerprints on the genome. Early regional powers like Elam and Media rose and fell, but the real explosion of connectivity came with the great Persian empires. Under kings who ruled from cities like Pasargadae and Persepolis, Iran found itself at the head of a realm stretching from the borders of Greece to the fringes of the Indus Valley. Different peoples were suddenly linked by roads, taxes, and marriage. Greeks, Egyptians, Anatolians, Mesopotamians, and people from the Indus world all crossed paths with Iranians. Tiny fragments of their DNA filtered into the population, subtle but present, like faint musical notes beneath a dominant melody.
Then history took another sharp turn with the arrival of Alexander and his armies. Soldiers from Macedonia and other Greek city-states marched across the plateau, leaving behind not just fortresses, but offspring. Over time, their distinct genetic imprint faded into the larger Iranian background, diluted yet not entirely erased. Today, some threads in the tapestry still hint at these ancient encounters between Mediterranean warriors and Persian lands. Centuries later, a new force appeared from the southwest. Arab armies brought a new religion, new words, new customs. Culturally, the impact was profound. The spread of Islam reshaped the spiritual and political landscape of Iran. Genetically, however, the transformation was more modest. Studies of modern Iranian genomes suggest a noticeable but limited contribution from the Arabian Peninsula, enough to trace but not enough to overwrite the older layers. The core ancestry, rooted in ancient farmers and steppe migrants, remained surprisingly stable. And then, from the east, the earth shook again. Mongol and Turkic invasions swept through in the medieval period. Cities burned, populations were displaced, new ruling elites took power. You might expect such upheaval to rewrite the genome completely, but here's where the story
becomes even more unexpected. While small pockets of East Asian ancestry can be found in some Iranian populations, the overall genetic structure held its ground. In many regions, the Mongol storm left more scars on architecture and memory than on chromosomes. Meanwhile, the Silk Road quietly did what invading armies could not. For centuries, merchants, scholars, and pilgrims moved along its routes, carrying with them spices, silk, stories, and genes. People from India, Central Asia, China, the Caucasus, and even distant Africa passed through or settled in Iranian towns. Their descendants are still there, their DNA forming fine, almost invisible threads that add depth and texture to the overall pattern. When scientists today examine Iranian genomes with powerful computers, certain peculiarities stand out. Many individuals cluster apart from nearby Arab, Turkish, or South Asian populations. There is overlap, after all. History doesn't respect modern borders, but Iran forms its own gravitational center on the genetic map.
Part of this uniqueness comes from that enduring blend of early Near Eastern farmers and Bronze Age herders. Another part may be linked to very ancient groups related to hunter-gatherers from the Caucasus region, whose genetic traces in Iran are stronger than in many surrounding lands. Imagine an ancient group of people whose name we no longer know, whose language is lost, but whose biological echo still helps shape the faces, bodies, and even disease risks of millions today. Those risks are another, more personal side of the story. Certain inherited blood disorders, like beta thalassemia, occur more frequently in parts of Iran, likely due to a long interplay between ancestry and historical exposure to diseases such as malaria. In some cases, carrying a genetic variant that once offered protection in a dangerous environment now creates challenges in a modern world of hospitals and long lifespans. Other variants may influence skin tone, hair type, or how people process particular foods. None of these define Persianness, of course, but they are part of how history, climate, diet, pathogens, and migration etched itself onto the genome. Genes are not destiny, but they are a record of what our ancestors had to survive.
Perhaps the most remarkable thing is how Iran's genetics mirror its culture, a bridge, not a border. Iranian DNA sits at a crossroads between the Mediterranean, Central Asia, and South Asia, yet it doesn't fully merge into any of them. It is its own mixture, shaped by countless exchanges, but anchored by a resilient core that reaches back to the dawn of civilization. And just as identity in Iran today is not only about bloodlines, the genome is not the whole story. Heritage is also carried in language, in celebrations like Nowruz, in the art of weaving carpets, where each pattern reflects a region, a tribe, a memory. But when someone in Iran spits into a tube for a DNA test, they're not just getting a list of percentages, they're touching a living archive of migrations, alliances, catastrophes, and quiet domestic lives that stretched on despite the chaos. To study this DNA is to realize that no empire truly vanished. No caravan passed entirely without a trace. Pieces of Elamite farmers, steppe horsemen, Silk Road traders, Arab scholars, and Mongol riders all whispered together inside the cells of people buying bread in a modern Tehran bakery. The past isn't gone, it's walking around, drinking tea, scrolling on phones, arguing about football and poetry. In the end, the genetic story of Iran is not just about uniqueness in a scientific sense, it is about continuity. A land that has been invaded, divided, and reassembled countless times has somehow maintained a recognizable biological thread linking present-day families to people who lived under completely different skies and gods. That's why this DNA story matters. It reminds us that identity is both fragile and incredibly durable. Borders move, flags change, languages evolve, but the deeper currents of ancestry flow quietly beneath it all, carrying memories of ancient migrations and forgotten names forward into each new generation. So as we close this journey into the genome of Iran, ask yourself, if so much history can hide in the cells of a single nation, what stories might be sleeping in your own DNA? If you'd like to keep exploring the secret archives written inside human genomes, consider subscribing and traveling with us through more hidden histories. Because no matter where we come from, the past is not behind us, it lives within us, etched into our DNA, waiting for someone to learn how to listen.